Everybody. So this is our little video conference covering Grammar 6.1 in your textbook, and we are going to talk about indirect object pronouns. And of course, by we, I mean I am. I'm going to talk about indirect object pronouns. The first thing I'm going to remind you is that you already learned indirect object pronouns back when you learned the verb gustar. In our textbook, that happens in Grammar 3.1, so you should go back and have a look at textbook page 85, please. Here's a quick review then. Indirect object pronouns receive the indirect action of the verb and answer the questions to whom or for whom with respect to the action of the verb. That is what they do, okay? With the notable exception of gustar and other gustar type verbs. So except for them, which granted is the only place you've really seen indirect object pronouns up until now, excepting them in normal sentences, in order for there to be an indirect object pronoun in a sentence, logically there must be a direct object, i.e. something that answers the question, what? With respect to the action of the verb, and that has to be in the sentence as well. Let's see some examples in English to start. This will really make clearer the point that I'm trying to present to you. So in the sentence that follows, the indirect object is bolded and the direct object is in italics. Again, we're going to work in English first. So here's our sentence. I buy gifts for my nephew. Okay. I buy what? Gifts. Thus, gifts is the direct object of the verb, right? For whom? For my nephew. Thus, for my nephew is the indirect object of the verb buy. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope so. Let's see another sentence. So we have Susana lends books to me. So Susana lends what? Books. Therefore, books is the direct object of the verb lends. Okay? And to whom? To me. So to me is the indirect object of the verb lends in this sentence. Got it? It's not hard. It's just grammar. All right, so now let's add the Spanish sentence below each English one. So the indirect object is still bolded in each sentence, and the direct object is in italics. There's only one added element in the Spanish sentence, and it's an explicatory phrase that you'll see in green bold type. All right. So I buy gifts for my nephew. That was our English sentence. In Spanish, it is le compro regalos a mi sobrino. So compro qué? I buy what? Regalos. Regalos is the direct object of the verb compro. And a quién? A mi sobrino. Let's talk about the differences, though. There are differences between the English sentence and the Spanish sentence. And if you insist on thinking in English, like I know you do, these differences are going to cause difficulty for you. So, in the Spanish sentence, the actual indirect object pronoun le is located before the conjugated verb, not after it, like in English, right? Also, this le, which could, in theory, refer to a lot of different people, is complemented by the inclusion of an explanatory a phrase, a mi sobrino, after the verb, okay? This a phrase explains to whom this le refers, because if I just said le compro regalos, that sentence is grammatically correct. But it's almost impossible to understand because you're like, well, who's the le? It could be a él, a ella, usted, any singular noun in the language. It's completely unclear. So to clarify, to explain to whom that le refers, we have this a phrase, a mi sobrino. A phrases are incredibly important for indirect object pronouns in Spanish. All right. let's do this again. So we're going to add a Spanish sentence below the English one. We've already seen the English sentence. The indirect object is still bolded in each sentence, and the direct object is in italics. All right. So we had this sentence, Susana lends books to me. In Spanish, this sentence is, Susana me presta libros. Let's look at the sentence structure for a minute. So in English, right, here's our verb. Both the direct object and the indirect object follow the verb. Do you see that? This is not Spanish syntax. In Spanish, the indirect object pronoun me directly precedes the conjugated verb. It has to. That is the only place it can go in this sentence. And then, of course, the direct object, libros, is still after the verb, immediately following it. And of course, since we need to specify who the subject of the third person verb presta is, we have our subject noun to start the sentence. Okay? So Susana controls the conjugation of the verb presta. This me is an indirect object pronoun. It has no ability to control the conjugation of a verb. That's not what indirect object pronouns do. Indirect object pronouns explain to whom or for whom the action of the verb is intended. All right. So again, can you see the difference here? The indirect object pronoun me is before the verb in the Spanish sentence. This is really, really important. And because this me unambiguously refers to only one person, to me, there is no explanatory a phrase included after the verb. See that there's nothing, highlighting stuff that doesn't need to be highlighted. See, there's no a phrase over there. This is because who me is goes without saying. And in Spanish, when things go without saying, we don't say them, right? Now, I don't need the a phrase a mí to explain to whom me refers, but if I wanted to be emphatic and have a sentence that meant the equivalent of Susana lends books to me, not to anybody else, to me, with that extra emphasis, then if that were my intention, I could include that a phrase a mí, please note how it's spelled, after the direct object noun, and that would look like this. Susana me presta libros a mí. Again, the mandatory part is the indirect object pronoun before the conjugated verb. Here, the optional part is the a phrase after the verb and after the direct object noun. Okay? The inclusion of a mí in this sentence makes it emphatic. It makes it mean Susana lends books to me. Emphasis. If you just wanted to state it flat out, Susana lends books to me, like that, then no a mí at all, just this sentence. Susana me presta libros. Totally normal. Who me is doesn't need explaining. So when you explain something that doesn't need explaining, what you end up doing is being emphatic. Got it? Good. Let's go on. Now, when we are doing classwork, and this includes exams, with indirect object pronouns, make sure you look only at the a phrase when you decide what indirect object pronoun to supply for any sentence. And even though it's not really natural or organic, the a phrase will always be included in any exam or formative assessment where I want you to generate an indirect object pronoun for me. Okay? It's the only thing I could give you to cue you as to what I wanted you to produce. So, a couple of things. Please, 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 we already spoke about this briefly, and again, by we, I mean I, on the previous slide. Do not try to make the indirect object pronoun quote unquote, it's good to speak English clearly, quote unquote, agree with the conjugated verb that immediately follows it in the sentence. No. Proximity is not causality, okay? Just because the indirect object pronoun is located right next to the conjugated verb does not mean it exerts any control over it. It can't. The only thing that can control a verb's conjugation in Spanish is its subject, and that's a different part of speech. Similar error, please do not select your indirect object pronoun based on the subject, noun, or pronoun that precedes it. Don't do that. Again, there is no causal relationship between a subject, noun, and or pronoun, it could be a subject pronoun, and the indirect object pronoun that follows it in syntactic order. The subject doesn't control the indirect object. No, it just doesn't. The only thing that controls the choice of indirect object pronoun selection in an exam environment is the phrase in the sentence. Those are the only two things that have causative syntactic relationship. The rest is just proximity, and proximity is not causality, okay? Truly, just if you need to produce an indirect object pronoun for me in a Spanish sentence in an exam or formative assessment environment, or when you're working on your chapter exercises in Connect, it's the phrase in the sentence. That's the only thing that's going to determine your choice of indirect object pronoun. Only thing. So let's take a moment to review our Spanish indirect object pronouns and the phrases that trigger them. All right. So our first person indirect object pronoun is me, and we use this when the phrase is a mí, right? Then we have te, and we use this when the phrase is a ti. Simple enough. Then we have le. This is our third person singular indirect object pronoun. We use this when the phrase is a plus any one person, whether that person is denoted via the subject pronouns él, ella, or usted, or via a common noun or a proper noun. When our phrase is a plus any one person, our indirect object pronoun will always be le. Right? Then we have our first person plural indirect object pronoun, nos. And when do we use this? We use this when the phrase is a nosotros, or a nosotras, or a anybody, y a mí, because to anyone and to me equals to us, and to us is nos in Spanish. All right. And lastly, remember, we never use vosotros forms in this course, so vos is out. Do not write it as an answer in anything for this class. Thank you. All right. That leaves us with our third person plural indirect object pronoun, les. When do we use this? Well, we use it when our phrase is a plus ellos, or a plus ellas, or a plus ustedes, or a plus any group of people denoted by a plural noun. It can also be used when you have a plus one person, y a plus another person, i.e. a sequence of people joined by the connector y, meaning and, after the preposition a, okay? Me, te, le, nos, and les are our indirect object pronouns in Spanish. And here you have all of the phrases that trigger their use in an exam or assessment environment. All right, let's see how this actually works. So if you were working on something and you had to produce an indirect object pronoun for this sentence right here, mi papá blank manda regalos a mis hermanas. First of all, do not waste your time translating this sentence to English. Why? It's useless. The only thing you need to do is look for the phrase. So just start scanning. Oh, here it is. A mis hermanas. Lovely. That's a plus a plural noun. What did we just say? When this is the case, when we have a plus a plural noun, we need the third person plural indirect object pronoun les, and that's what you write. Papá has nothing to do with it. Manda has nothing to do with it. Only this phrase is controlling your choice of indirect object pronoun. Truly. All right, let's look at another example. So if you had a sentence like this, tú blank prestas los libros de texto a mí, and you needed to produce an indirect object pronoun for me, the only thing you do is scan, scan, scan. Oh, there's my ah phrase. Super, it's a mí. Hey, when this is the case, we have to use the indirect object pronoun me. That's it. Tú me prestas los libros de texto a mí is correct. And notice this may right here has nothing to do with this tú and has nothing to do with this prestas. Nope. It happens to be located between them. Fine. Proximity is not causality. All right? Got it? The only thing governing our choice of indirect object pronoun here is the ah phrase a mí. That's it. Ignore everything else. When you are doing this task, your only focus should be the ah phrase. That's it. All right. More examples so you get used to this. So we're going to work with this sentence, and your task is to produce the correct indirect object pronoun. Tú blank dices la verdad a tu novio. Wonderful. Ignore everything else. Scan until you find the ah phrase. There it is. It's a tu novio. Super. That's a plus a singular noun. As I just told you, when this is the case, the indirect object pronoun we have to use is le. But there's a tu. No. That tu is a possessive adjective. Adjectives never control choice of pronoun. Not ever. Nouns control choice of pronoun. All right? And indeed, tú le dices la verdad a tu novio is correct. Absolutely. The le that goes here has nothing to do with tú and nothing to do with dices. Yes, it happens to be located between them. Fine. That's where it belongs. We put our indirect object pronoun immediately before the conjugated verb in the sentence. Yep. Doesn't mean that the subject controls it, doesn't mean that the verb controls it. Neither thing does. The only thing you need to look at is the ah phrase. One last example. So, say you saw this, and you're like, oh God, now there's no subject pronoun. Well, of course there isn't. The verb is traigo. The subject of traigo is unambiguously yo. Remember, Spanish is pro-drop. Whenever we can drop the subject pronoun, we do. Otherwise, including a subject pronoun where it's not necessary also makes your sentence emphatic in a way you probably didn't intend, right? Anyway, we don't care about the verb when we're trying to figure out what indirect object pronoun to supply. We do not care. All we do is go find that dang ah phrase. There it is. It's a ti. Super. Whenever our ah phrase is a ti, the only indirect object pronoun we can use is te. That's it. That's it. Te traigo flores a ti is a correct sentence. And again, the te that goes here has nothing to do with this yo form verb. Nothing. There's no causal relationship between these two syntactic elements. We chose te because we went and found our ah phrase that was governing it. A ti. That's why. Again, ladies, gentlemen, ignore everything else in the sentence when you're performing this task. Your only focus should be on the ah phrase. In the Spanish sentence, please stop wasting your time and mental energy translating these prompt sentences to English. It will not help you. It will lead you astray and waste your time. When you need to produce the indirect object pronoun in an exam or assessment environment, just scan until you find the ah phrase and then give the indirect object pronoun that corresponds to it. All right? All right. I hope you all have a really good weekend, and thank you for watching. Hasta luego. Ciao.